Somewhere around 1 million years ago, one of your ancestors did something no animal had ever done before. They held food over fire, not to warm themselves, not by accident, deliberately, intentionally, with the understanding, however primitive, that what came out the other side would be different from what went in. We do not know who it was. We do not know exactly when. We do not know if they understood what they were starting. But whatever they started that day changed the human body so completely that the body you have right now, the brain you are using to read this, would not exist without it. That is not a metaphor. That is biology. To understand why humans cook, you first have to understand what cooking actually does to food. Raw food is difficult, not just to chew, though it is that too. It is difficult to digest. The calories and nutrients locked inside raw plant cells and raw muscle fibers are not fully accessible to the digestive system. Your gut has to work extremely hard to extract them. And even working hard, it cannot get everything. Studies comparing the energy extracted from raw versus cooked food consistently find that cooking releases between 30 and 80% more usable calories from the same amount of food. A raw potato provides dramatically fewer usable calories than a cooked one. Raw meat delivers far less energy than cooked meat. Cooking does not just change the taste. It fundamentally changes what your body can do with the food. There is a second thing cooking does. It kills pathogens. Raw food, especially raw meat, is loaded with bacteria, parasites, and other biological threats that can seriously harm or kill you. Cooking destroys almost all of them, every time, reliably. An animal eating raw food is constantly gambling with its health. An animal eating cooked food has eliminated most of that risk. And there is a third thing. Cooking softens food dramatically. And softer food requires less chewing, which requires smaller jaw muscles, which requires a smaller, lighter skull to anchor those jaw muscles, which changes the entire structure of the head. I did not expect that third one to matter as much as it does. It matters enormously. In 1999, a primatologist named Richard Wrangham published what became known as the cooking hypothesis. His argument was simple and radical in equal measure. Cooking was not just something humans happened to do, it was the thing that made humans human. The evidence starts with the gut. If you compare the digestive systems of humans to other great apes, chimpanzees, gorillas, orangutans, something immediately stands out. Our gut is dramatically smaller relative to our body size. A chimpanzee's gut is enormous. It needs to be. Processing raw plant matter, extracting nutrients from fibrous leaves and tough fruits, requires a massive fermentation chamber, a long, slow, energy-intensive digestive process. The gut of a chimpanzee uses a huge proportion of that animal's total energy budget just running itself. The human gut is about 60% the size you would expect for a primate of our body weight. We outsourced the digestion, we let fire pre-digest our food before it ever reached our stomachs. And the energy that was freed up from running a smaller gut went somewhere. It went to the brain. The human brain is extraordinary by any biological measure. It is 3 times larger than you would expect for a primate of our body weight. It consumes 20% of your total caloric intake despite being only 2% of your body weight. It is the most metabolically expensive organ in the known animal kingdom relative to body size. And it could not have evolved on raw food. The math does not work. Researchers have calculated that to sustain a human-sized brain on a raw food diet, you would need to eat for roughly 9 hours every day, just to keep the brain running. That is not a sustainable strategy for an animal that also needs to find food, avoid predators, raise offspring, and sleep. Cooking solved this by releasing far more calories from the same amount of food, and by shrinking the gut so that less energy was spent on digestion itself. Cooking made the caloric surplus available that the expanding brain required. The brain grew because the food got better. Not better ingredients, better processing. This is the part I find most extraordinary. The human brain, the thing that produces language, art, mathematics, music, science, every thought you have ever had, is in some meaningful sense a byproduct of someone learning to hold food over fire. But why only us? This is the question that keeps getting more interesting the longer you look at it. Other animals encounter fire. Lightning strikes cause wildfires every year. Animals flee from fire, or in some cases approach the aftermath of fire to scavenge cooked prey. Chimpanzees have been documented approaching and observing fire with what researchers describe as a kind of fascinated calm. They are not terrified of it. Some appear drawn to it, and yet not one of them has ever used it to cook. The answer appears to involve several things converging at once. First, you need hands capable of controlled manipulation. holding food at the precise distance from fire where it cooks rather than burns. Second, you need the cognitive capacity to understand delayed gratification, to recognize that investing effort now will produce a better result later. Third, you need to understand transformation, that the thing you end up with is the same thing you started with, but fundamentally changed. Fourth, you need the social structure to share cooked food and to maintain fire collectively. No other animal currently has all four of these simultaneously. Chimpanzees have hands capable of manipulation. Crows show evidence of delayed gratification. Some species demonstrate theory of mind in limited ways, but the specific combination, hands plus understanding of transformation plus delayed gratification plus fire maintenance plus food sharing, appears to have converged only once in the history of life on Earth, in one lineage, one species, your ancestors. And once it started, it could not be stopped, because cooking did something to the human body that made going back to raw food almost impossible. The gut shrank. As generations of hominins ate cooked food, the selection pressure to maintain an enormous gut disappeared. Smaller guts were fine. They worked well on cooked food, and smaller guts freed up energy for other things. So gut size decreased. Over generations, progressively, the jaw shrank. Softer food meant less chewing. Less chewing meant smaller jaw muscles were sufficient. Smaller jaw muscles meant a lighter, more rounded skull. The heavy brow ridges of earlier hominins, anchoring points for massive jaw muscles, reduced. The face flattened, the skull rounded. The brain had more room to expand into. The teeth shrank. Raw food requires large crushing, grinding surfaces. Cooked food does not. Human teeth are dramatically smaller than those of any other great ape. We have the smallest teeth relative to body size of any primate, because we stopped needing large ones the moment we started pre-processing food with fire. I think about this every time I eat something cooked. The fact that the body doing the eating was shaped by the cooking. That my jaw is the size it is because my ancestors used fire. That my brain is the size it is for the same reason. That cooking did not just change what we eat, it changed what we are. There is a detail about this that I find impossible to put down. Cooking is the only technology that is older than the species that uses it. Fire was being used to process food. There is archaeological evidence for controlled fire use and heat-processed food. Before Homo sapiens existed, our ancestors were cooking before we were us. The technology predates the species. We were shaped by it before we were capable of fully understanding it, and we have never stopped. Every human culture that has ever been documented, without a single known exception, cooks food. It is the most universal human behavior that exists, more universal than language in its specific forms, more universal than any particular tool use. Every culture, every time, cooks. The raw food movement in modern times, people who advocate eating entirely unprocessed raw food for health reasons, is attempting something our bodies are genuinely not designed for anymore. Studies of populations eating exclusively raw food long-term consistently find that a significant proportion of women on raw food diets stop menstruating. The caloric density is simply insufficient for normal reproductive function. We have been cooked food animals for so long that our biology assumes it. Somewhere around 1 million years ago, one of your ancestors held food over fire. They did not know they were changing the trajectory of a species. They did not know they were starting a process that would shrink the gut and grow the brain and reshape the face and restructure the skull and make a new kind of mind possible. They were just, in whatever way their mind worked at that moment, trying to eat something better than what they had been eating. And it worked. Better than anything that has ever worked before or since. Every meal you have ever cooked, every kitchen that exists, every restaurant, every recipe, every food culture on Earth, all of it traces back to that moment. One ancestor, one fire, one piece of food held over heat for the first time. The question is not why we cook. The question is why it took so long for any animal to figure it out. And the honest answer, the one that stays with me, is that it required a mind capable of understanding transformation, of seeing raw and imagining cooked, of holding in the head simultaneously what something is and what it could become. That capacity is what separates us from everything else that has ever lived on this planet. And we discovered it by accident. Standing next to a fire, holding something in our hands,